Excellent, and some good metrics and materials afterwards. So this is Edwin Gautier, the Senior Director of Innovation at United Way Worldwide.
Awesome. All right. So thank you for giving me this time to speak with you all, and thanks for sharing all the great information. We were just talking in the back about the overlap that we see between the e-policy works and the community conversations that we tend to have in local communities that are very labor intensive in person. And so thinking about IdeaScale for that could be a great asset as well. So my name is Edwin Gautier. I work for United Way Worldwide. We're a nonprofit organization that fights for the health, education, and financial stability of every person in 1,800 communities around the world. We're about 130 years old, and people are often surprised to find that we have an innovation department. The team is pretty small. It's myself and Lynn Taveskov, who's in the back, powerhouse knowledge manager, and the person who runs our crowdsourcing platform most of the time. But when we talk to our corporate partners and we're talking about innovation and 360 video, it's often quite surprising. And so when they, even just hearing that we have an innovation team or that I'm the lead on innovation, they ask a lot of questions like, well, what does that actually mean? Like, is that a thing that you have at nonprofits, to be the lead of innovation? And so in describing our work to others, the best advice I ever got was to describe your title as the most frequent customer feedback that you hear from others. And so I like to think of myself as the chief. That's not what I think of when I think about United Way, but I mean that as a good thing, officer. And so I get it. I understand why people would think that, 130-year-old nonprofit, not a place where I would think first for innovation and artificial intelligence and 360 video. But to me, it's been in our DNA. Innovation has been in United Way's DNA from the very beginning. We started in Denver in 1887. There were a group of concerned citizens who got together to talk about the issues they were facing with industrialization. It was a businesswoman, a priest, a minister, a rabbi. I assume it happened in a bar, but we can't really know. But at that time in Denver, it was shortly after the gold rush, industrialization, the population was exploding, and they didn't have the resources to deal with people who were coming searching for work and not finding anything. And so the civil society, charities were tapped out. The business community was tapped out and tired of being asked, and there was no central organization to say what was a verified nonprofit that you can give to and feel good about your donation. And so this group of community leaders got together. They created an organization that could both vet nonprofits and say this is a place where you can feel good about giving your money. And they had one consolidated appeal to the business community and to wealthier citizens, so that everyone wasn't going on their own to make those asks individually. And so for me, that spirit of bringing people together has continued throughout our history. Our entire business model is based on bringing people together, mobilizing the caring power of communities. But we've had to respond to market demands. You can't operate a business the same way today as you did 10 years ago, much less 130 years ago. And we're excited about where we're going with all the changes in artificial intelligence. We just announced a partnership with Salesforce where we'll be able to create a digital platform that's very similar to Netflix, and that'll recommend volunteer opportunities based on your previous behavior, your interests. This is something that we're really excited about, but still, as far as innovation goes, that's like one thing that's happened in the last few years. And we want to find ways to be innovating faster, to make innovation a more continuous process for us. So we adopted this innovation model. It's called the Organizational Capacity for Continuous Innovation. It's from a couple of professors out of Stanford. And this is based on tons of volume of ideas coming in, and how can you put them through different stages to yield the most benefit for your organization. And so internally, we have ideas that are coming in from our staff. Those ideas are vetted against the standard criteria of 4 different lenses. We then test those ideas by creating a minimal viable product, bringing it to market, seeing how people actually react to it. And then finally, we make decisions on what to do with those ideas based on those test results. Sometimes we decide to retest an idea if the results are inconclusive, or if we just have a gut feeling that this could still be a great idea. Sometimes we'll sunset an idea and stop doing it if it doesn't work, which is a great thing to be able to do, to stop doing work that's not achieving results. And then for things that are successful, we formalize them into new products for our corporate partners, into promising practices that we can deliver to local United Ways across our network, or just new processes that we can bring into our organization. Then at the same time, we're talking to our donors and our volunteers around the world and getting their ideas for how we can, leveraging their ideas into those IdeaScale platforms as well. One great example of how those 2 very different use cases come together. In October of last year, we ran a crowdsourcing campaign in Miami, Florida, and we asked young professionals in Miami, how can we help kids lead healthy lives through better eating habits or staying active? And so everybody submitted their ideas. One of the many winning ideas was they knew of a community an empty lot in a food desert. They converted that empty lot into a community garden, and a bunch of volunteers came out to plant and construct this community garden. At the same time, in our internal crowdsourcing platform, we had a great idea from someone on our team named Hannah Beasley, and she said, we need to invest more time and energy exploring 360 video and virtual reality. And so we were able to send our videographer down with a very cheap 360 camera and captured the creation of that community garden with the 360 camera. And now we're using that to bring to corporate partners to demonstrate how we can demonstrate their impact in communities in more innovative ways to their customers, to their employees. And there's nothing more fun than sitting with a foundation lead and putting the VR headset on their head and then watching them spin around in their chair. It's a great feeling. And so we ended up purchasing 15 IdeaScale licenses for our pilot. I like to joke that we were about 60 days into our 14-day trial when we called Tim and said, okay, I think we're ready to act on this. So that's a huge amount of ground where you can learn a lot of different engagement tips. And that's what I want to spend the bulk of this time talking about, the three ways that we've learned to bring people into the platform and get them engaged in and coming back. All right, so the first is to become a scientist. And just out of curiosity, does anyone know the trick to giving a great high five? Lynn, you can't say. Yes?
You look at the person's elbow.
You have to look at the person's elbow. So if you look at your partner's elbow, your ability to deliver a fantastic high five goes up exponentially. It's a weird thing to bring up, but the reason is there is both an art and a science to everything. And so we tend to think about marketing and communication from more of the art side. Like, how are we gonna make this person feel? That's exactly right, you should be focused on that. But the science side is just as important. We need to get into every communication strategy, thinking about this in terms of testing a hypothesis, measuring results, doing what works. And so that's what I'm presenting now. So we had an issue in our community where we would get new users to come in, and based on Google Analytics, we could see that new users weren't coming back the following week. And so in order for our community to be vibrant, we definitely need those new users coming in, but we need them coming back. We need them commenting, we need them submitting ideas, we need them getting inspired. And so you see here, this is a cohort analysis. The week of August 6th through the 12th, we had 71 people come in. The next week, only 2.8% came back. The following week, only 2.2% of new users came back. And so we wanted to find ways to inspire those people to come back into the platform. And so Lynn and I created an onboarding series. It was just 3 simple emails to move people who were only returning at 2.2%. And each Friday, we sent out an email to users on the platform that welcomed them, explained a couple of the first initial steps that they can take, including just reading some ideas, voting and commenting. And we moved the retention from 2.2% to 13% over the next few weeks. So one thing that we're really excited about with the Zapier integration is that now we can automate this. We can just connect it to MailChimp or one of our email clients to do it automatically from now on. But for now, we've just been copying all of the new people who have entered the platform, putting them into an email on Fridays and hitting send. But we've been seeing really great results. So the second tip is to be as skeptical as possible of the data that you're seeing. And so we tend to focus on very simple metrics like page views or time on page. One of the big tips that I've gotten from friends who do this for their job full time is to ignore as many of those metrics that don't actually ladder up to your final end goal as possible. They're great, but they're mostly just noise. Page views is helpful, but even if you just think about the changes to the IdeaScale platform in the last year, they've moved to like the endless scroll. And so someone can spend a ton of time on the platform and only go to one page and read literally every single idea on the platform. So try to avoid those metrics that don't actually ladder into what your final end goal would be. So the second tip is we always make sure to corroborate what we're seeing with additional data. So this is an example that's still based on the email series that we just mentioned. Our goal was to reach 300 monthly active users. We knew we couldn't do that just with new users coming in and never coming back to the platform. So how would we re-engage the current users to add to that base of people who were visiting the platform? And so you see down here in this bottom graph, there are 3 lines. It's the sessions total, the returning visitors, and new visitors. We knew that if we were going to see an increase in the monthly active users, that it couldn't just be, and that we could attribute it to the email series, that it wouldn't just be new users that increased. We knew that it was going to be returning user traffic that was going to be increasing. And so that's exactly what you see here. The 2 new users and returning users go in tandem, and then we see a breakout of returning visitors towards the end. And so that's how we knew that it was the intervention that we were deploying that was actually driving this change. And so the final tip is to focus on storytelling. So I look at graphs and I'm like, yes, a graph. Most people don't feel that way necessarily. So when we were first launching our community, trying to get people back into the platform, I was sending an email to the staff at United Way Worldwide to encourage them to go into the platform and just sharing some success as I saw success. And I was on like my 6th bullet of a very dry statistic when I just realized this isn't going to work. So we switched into storytelling mode. And instead of just talking about statistics, very similar to what we just heard from ePolicyWorks, we switched to stories of what's actually happening on the platform. And so there is a vibrant conversation happening on the 360 video idea. More comments were coming in than on any other idea. And The original poster provided some great content in their original idea. And then we had our videographer say that he's got a VR rig at home. And then we had someone else say they used to work at another organization where they used to do this full time. And so the idea was starting to take legs even without any intervention from me or Lynn as a moderator. And so we just told that story in an email. And the response that we got back, even our CEO replied to the email saying, I love it, like this is great. And so just making sure that you switch into story mode is a really important concept because we're trying to build emotional resonance between your product and how people feel about the experience. And the best example that I have, people will always search for the path of least resistance. Literally the day that we launched our IdeaScale platform, we sent out the email after a big all-staff meeting and said, here's where you can go to submit your ideas. And then I got a reply that said, it would be a great idea. And then they proceeded to just explain it in my inbox. It's just, so I think it's because people feel comfortable with that. They know that that's easier. They understand what happens that's off of their plate now that they've sent it to my inbox. So stories and being able to talk about how the features of the platform made that idea come alive helps us bring people to the platform and not to just reply to my email. Awesome. And so 2 tips on the flip side of things that you can definitely watch out for when you're trying to increase engagement. And they're both related to people management. So the first is to be careful of the HIPPO. This is an acronym for the highest paid person's opinion. Sometimes you can have a very demonstrative or overbearing leader in the organization who also has a title to go with that attitude. And just them, their nature can sometimes quell creativity or people sharing ideas. Another way where this kind of manifests is for United Way, we tend to be a hierarchical organization. And so if somebody in leadership shares an idea, then everyone else will just kind of acquiesce and they'll defer to that person who has traditionally always been the person that provides ideas. And so it's just difficult and something that you have to watch out for. The second is the jellyfish. And jellyfish, if you imagine, the feeling of getting stung by a jellyfish probably hurts pretty bad. But it's made worse, it's compounded by the fact that you were probably at the beach or snorkeling or hanging out with friends and family. And so I feel like some of the negative barbs that you see thrown at people who are risking it all, being innovative with you, having the time of their life, finally getting that idea off of their chest, it's very similar feeling when all of a sudden someone says, that will never work. Or we tried that already 10 years ago and it failed then, so why would it work now? And so the jellyfish is just another issue you have to watch out for. So if you run into these characters in your communities, some ways that you can get around or even prevent them from happening in the first place. One is clear community guidelines. We were really lucky that IdeaScale provided us with sample copy for community guidelines, and then they're posted on our website. I don't have a lot of confidence that people are reading the community guidelines before they start. It's probably about as likely as the terms and conditions on Facebook or something. But I am confident that if somebody is breaking the community guidelines, we have something that we can send back saying, you're out of line and here are the reasons because we've already agreed to these norms. The second is community management. When somebody posts a comment that says, this will never work because we tried this already, community management is a great opportunity for you to reframe the conversation, for you all to collectively learn the knowledge that's in this person's head that's making them so negative, and maybe to help explain why, even though it didn't work in the past, this could be a new opportunity. We have a lot of people who have worked at United Way for a long time, myself included. But if your complaint about something is, we tried it in 1997 and it didn't work. It's like, you were on dial-up then. That's not even, not even relevant. But helping people understand the new environment that we're in, all of the new changes that are happening to United Way and to the external world can help change the conversation. The third is executive sponsorship. Crowdsourcing was an idea that came from our CEO, so we were pretty lucky and had the runway that we needed. But just having someone in a leadership position be able to vouch for you and say that this is important is a huge deal. The fourth is work plan integration. A lot of companies like Google have a set aside, 20% of an employee's time is devoted to innovation, even if it's away from their job description. We don't have that at United Way exactly, but in our annual performance management system, innovation is one of our core competencies, like a skill or a part of your character that you have to express. And so innovation, creativity, having that as something that people are graded on gives us a little bit more leverage to say that people spending time on the platform is aligned with the organization's mission. And then last is one-on-one meetings. There is a great Harvard Business Review article recently that said one-on-one meetings are 34 times more effective than trying to handle conflict over email. And I think that's really important when we're talking about things like the jellyfish or the hippo. Got to remember all the time that these aren't people necessarily, but they're just roles that even I have probably played at some point in time if I was afraid of change happening or just nervous about the new developments. And so these one-on-one meetings are great for understanding someone's motivation and hopefully changing the way they behave in the platform. So we're really excited about the partnership that we have with IdeaScale. We spent most of our first year on the platform getting the word out and moving people to submit ideas. Right now, we want to get really into the functionality of moving ideas through the process and making sure that those ideas generate revenue and impact for United Way and our local communities. We have a scorecard metric that's in front of the global board that we're going to make 30 new solutions for our corporate partners, and those are going to be coming from IdeaScale. We've got revenue goals. It's moved from this is a really fun way to engage employees to this is a big part of our job. But we're really excited about that challenge and the focus that we're getting from organization leadership. The other piece is that we want to continue to ensure our United Ways find great ways to use IdeaScale. I just mentioned the ePolicy Works example is such a great, there's such a great overlap between how United Ways gather that community data and community needs data. And it's such a huge opportunity for how we can work with our local United Way partners. But this is just some feedback that we got from Lynn, was this across all of our IdeaScale partners? Yeah, so all 14 or so of the United Ways that ran IdeaScale campaigns with their public communities. The feedback that we heard was that it was modern, it was inclusive, the vast majority of people who participated were satisfied, 82%. And then beyond the statistical metrics, we got a really great email from someone in Miami who found out that their idea was getting the green light like a day after their birthday. They've been a donor, a contributor to United Way for years and used to fundraise by collecting pennies for United Way in elementary school. And they said to have this happen on my 40th birthday and to be this close to the impact, you've got me for the rest of my life. And so those are the kinds of experiences, the kind of impact that we want to make in local communities, bringing people who have the solutions closer to the people who need help. To do that, I think beyond just focusing on the geographic markets, Miami or DC, how can we work with a corporate partner who has a footprint across the entire United States or around the world to say, what can you bring to the table, Microsoft or Deloitte, around challenges related to artificial intelligence? What can you do to help us understand how we can make this library of early learning content more accessible for new parents or for teachers. These are challenges that we're bringing to corporate partners now as part of our ongoing relationship with those organizations. And ultimately, just really excited about where we're going and what we've been seeing. This has been one of the most exciting adventures that I've been on in my 10 years with United Way, and just really excited to see what we're able to accomplish in the future. All right.
And when you're onboarding, you're onboarding welcome aboard emails,
Mm-hmm.
you send out every week. Would you mind to share a copy of those around?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Totally just don't play direct.
Yeah.
Even see scroll out, hey, you didn't delete United Way.
Yeah, we'll definitely send those, I guess, to Tim or to someone at, yeah, absolutely. And there's a website, I think it's called goodcopy.com or something like that, but it's just like snippets of company email that they send to their,
That's cool.
and we just stole a lot, so.
Edwin, that's such an excellent and thorough analysis, and then also lessons learned and next steps. I think one obstacle we're seeing in government and part of your day-to-day jobs is you're not full-time on this, and also it's tough to get a government employee to work with their idea to get towards implementation and development, which is what we're seeing as this next push towards how do we just get beyond the statistics, right, and actually implement and have outcomes and results. So do you have any advice? I know you're just beginning this new part of the journey, but you have so many innovative concepts that you're trying to bring in here. I want to reference really quick, in the private sector, some companies, they actually have their employees walk the idea through towards implementation. And these are companies that are implementing 1,000 ideas a year. So any advice you could give to?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely want people to be involved in the idea implementation and testing process, and then making it a requirement means we would get less ideas. So I think what we've seen from the 360 video, from a couple other examples, is that we have hand raisers, and sometimes they raise their hand on the platform, and just giving them the green light. Like, our videographer gave us the model of camera to buy, and he booked his ticket down to Miami to go and film it without even clearing it with his boss. And so we find like this coalition of people who are willing to move things forward even at a faster pace than we're ready to move. And so until we can find a way to get more time from each individual contributor, it's probably going to be some mix of like team build and like a coalition of people who are just at the ready.
Insurgency, per se.
Yeah, guiding coalition.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely. Oh, I thought this was for me.